Good evening. Welcome. You are listening to IntellectualRadio.com, and I am Lynn Sharif, and this is the Wise Wife Radio Show. This is episode number 12, so I really appreciate you joining us tonight. And we are going to welcome our guest first. You met her on last week. She is a friend of the show. Her name is Debbie Dalton, and she is our Pure Romance certified sex consultant. And so we have her on the line today. Hi, Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing very well. And so I want to refresh. If this is your first time joining, on last week, we introduced Debbie, friend of the show, who is a Pure Romance certified sex consultant. And she shared some tips with us. And so the idea is that we want to have you comfortable with looking at products that you may be bringing into your bedroom. The thing that we stressed so many times on last week is that it is not a bad thing to bring products into your bedroom, because these products can help to enhance your sex life. And again, Debbie has spoken really about her expertise in this area, about how this is a very discreet relationship that she has with her clients and can help to educate. So we want to welcome Debbie back. We have something called Just the Tip Tuesday. And so we have Debbie coming on for her tip for today. So how are you today, Debbie?
I am doing well. How are you?
Great. And folks, I want to make sure that, and I will put it in the chat while Debbie is talking, to get in contact with her. You can send her an email, which is PR, so Pure Romance, PR by Debbie 247@gmail.com. You also can text her or call her at 815-314-0737. And then we also started a private Facebook group, and it is the Wise Wife's Love Den. And we will be dropping comments, products, and all of that into the private Facebook group. So we will, I'm going to ask you to look for an invitation, because I will be inviting all of my followers as well. But I'm going to turn the floor over to Debbie to talk about our Just the Tip Tuesday.
Yeah, thank you. So I did want to, as you were saying, how we spoke about last week, it was all on lubrication and just the differences of the types of lubrication, or why you may want one or need one. So I wanted to kind of reiterate that this week as well with another Just the Tip Tuesday. And if you didn't know, us as women are a one-stop lubrication station. And if you didn't know that everyone needs a lubricant, you do now. So if you've ever had a burning type of a feeling right after having sex, it's actually from all of the friction that is going on inside. If you do not use a lubricant, what that friction will cause is small tears or lacerations in the tissue, and eventually those lead to scar tissue. If you don't know, scar tissue over time, especially repetitive, will lose sensation and the good nerve feeling, which is what we do not want to have, especially in that area. So it is good, whether you feel like you need it or not, is to have a lubrication product on hand, whether it be a water-based, a silicone-based, or a hybrid in between, to have one on hand in case you ever have that feeling, or just because, to use anytime and every time. And the scar tissue as well can make it more difficult to reach the best part of intimacy, which would be the climax.
So you're saying, just to reiterate, you're saying that no matter what, that lubrication can always help. It never hurts. It always helps. And then you also mentioned water-based versus, and I can't remember what the other type of lubricant. Could you reiterate that? Water versus what?
Of course. So we have a water-based lubricant, which is our Just Like Me product. And then we have a silicone-based product, which is called Pure Pleasure. So typically, I would say your more daily use one would be the Just Like Me. And then whether you are wanting any activity that would include water, such as shower sex or anything of that sort, you would want a silicone-based. There are customers, clients that if you are getting older, you have more frequent dryness, maybe the water-based isn't what you're looking for. You're wanting something that is longer lasting. So I would recommend the silicone-based, and it's not going to feel sticky. It's not tacky by any means. It just lasts longer, and it gives more of a comfort and more of almost like a glide feeling.
Understood. So water-based, silicone-based, always good, never a bad thing. And we also talked about the fact that you do sell to clients that are over the age of 18, but perhaps there might be some use for moms of teen girls. Did you want to tell us a little more about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that when we were speaking personally, I had said, while what you had just said, I can't sell to anyone under the age of 18, I can sell to the moms. So one thing that I always make sure my customers know is whether it's their daughter, their niece, cousin, whatever it might be, lubrication should be for all ages. And one of the ideas or thoughts to have with your younger daughters, your teen daughters, is if they're just starting their menstrual cycle and you know, let's say your friend has a pool party or whatever, you started your cycle, you're still not comfortable, you're younger, you can still feel like the shame with it, you know, you might feel dirty or whatever it might be. And one of the things that I had told one of my clients was she had her daughter and she wanted to go to her friend's pool party, but she never used tampons before. So it was on top of having started her menstrual cycle, still being new with it, not really understanding. Tampons were almost like a fear factor for her, and she wanted nothing to do with it. So I had said, have you ever thought about giving her a water-based lubricant, not as anything dirty, not as anything wrong, but tampons should not scare her, and she should still be able to have fun with her friends. So getting a water-based lubricant for something as simple as just an ease of insertion with tampons can drastically change how, whether it's your daughter, your cousin, your niece, little sister, whatever it is, feel more confident and have a more comfortable experience when going through something that isn't always the most comfortable for women.
You're right. I, as a young, I think I started my cycle when I was 13, and I didn't know anything about tampons. Nobody ever taught me. So to be able to teach your daughters how to use them, that certainly does free them up a bit more than wearing a pad. And this could also be something that could help your teenage daughter. So thank you so much for that. So we have, again, gone over, and if you're just joining us, we have Debbie Dalton on the line. She is our Pure Romance certified sex consultant, and she is discussing several of the products that Pure Romance has. I have put her information into the Instagram as well as the Facebook chat. But again, I want to say, if you're on IntellectualRadio.com, I want to at least let you know how you can get in contact with Debbie. You can reach her at 815-314-0737, or you can email her at prbydebbie247@gmail.com. So Debbie, thank you so much. And folks, you will be seeing an invitation for you to join our private Facebook group called the Wise Wife's Love Den, where we will have more information about more products. Is there anything you want to add as we close, Debbie?
I did have one more addition to the Just the Tip Tuesday, if we have one quick second.
Absolutely.
So one of the things I wanted to add was when women are asked what they would describe as quote unquote bad sex, their answer usually would involve the word pain or painful, which is never okay. Sex should never hurt. So the two most common causes of that pain are either lack of lubrication, which we spoke about, or the lack of female arousal, which goes back to the comment we had talked about last week of men are like microwaves, and we can hit that 30-second quick start and they are ready to go. But women, we are ovens, and we need that time to preheat and get ready before we actually can cook a full meal. So that's just something to think about too. While lubrication is a very important factor, it is also good to take that moment and make sure that your mental health, your emotional health is taken care of as well. And we as women, being mental and emotional creatures by nature, it is hard for us if we are not mentally in that thought process or in that zone for any intimacy. We physically will not get turned on. So if your mind isn't there, your body isn't there.
Very true. Very true. Foreplay starts outside of the bedroom.
Absolutely.
Debbie, we so appreciate having you here and giving us our Just the Tip Tuesday. So we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
You as well. Bye.
So again, if you want to reach Debbie, you can reach her at 815-314-0737. So I wanted to ask, and I am sure that everyone here watching has heard that half of marriages are going to end in divorce. Half of first marriages. And good Lord, if you're talking about a second or third marriage, you're doomed. And I really wanted to talk about that. I said in my post, join me so that we can talk about some good news about marriage. And I think of this as almost a cultural discouragement. So where did this information come from? You know, and the other things that you hear, that the divorce rate inside the church is the same as the outside. You know, most marriages are just holding on. So really, what are those facts? And I have a book recommendation. And this book is called The Good News About Marriage. It's The Good News About Marriage. And it is by Shanti, Shaunti Felhan. And this book is about debunking the discouraging myths about marriage and divorce. It's not a very thick book. It's a very easy read. I highly recommend you get this book. And I'm going to give you 5 of the big takeaways that are in this book. She actually dives into, where did these numbers come from? Why do we all believe that half of marriages are going to end in divorce, and that if your second and third marriage, where did all this stuff come from? And she goes very far because she wanted to get the answers and she did the work. So I highly recommend you get it. The 5 big takeaways. The first one is that the actual rate of divorce has never been 50%. Where did some of that come from? So she looked at the Census Bureau data, and 72%, when she looked at the census data, 72% of those who had been married were still married to their first spouse. And so does that mean that the other 28% meant that the rest of those folks got divorced? Well, no, because she came to learn that it also included people who were widowed. So that information is not cut and dry, that it's just 50%. And what they did a lot of things to actually cut through the data. That's why you need to get the book, because I'm certainly not going to read all of that to you, but I just want to bottom line it to you. But really, the number is really closer to about 20 to 25%. Not 50, but closer to 20 to 25% for first marriages. For second marriages, it is higher, somewhere in that 31 to 35%. Depending on the study. And that 50%, they actually, one of the things they did, because again, if you're in the clinical trials, and I worked in the pharmaceutical industry, I know you can get a trial to say anything you want, but they actually looked at some data and then they did projections. So it's projected data. So not necessarily cut and dried that it is 50%. The second big takeaway from the book is that the divorce rate has actually been declining for decades. The divorce rate is not climbing. It is actually going down. Now, of course, pandemic, we all know some people who maybe didn't make it through pandemic. So yes, I did find some data that said, yes, that at the beginning of pandemic, that divorce rates started to go up. But again, this is not the truth. Divorce rates are not climbing. There certainly are populations that have higher divorce rates. And just from looking at the data, when you have people who marry very young, people who live together before marriage, there certainly are populations that do have higher divorce rates. But by and large, the entire, like everybody, it's not 50%. And the divorce rate has been climbing, has not been climbing. It has been declining for years. This is something also that's really, really interesting. And that is that those who attend church regularly have a significantly lower divorce rate than those who don't. Big shocker. That's a big shocker, right? And so I'm actually going to refer to what's in the book. Where did this come from? That the rate of divorce is higher or just as high in the church as it is outside the church. And it actually, the research was done by George Barna and the Barna Group. And they research beliefs and practices in faith and culture. And it was a widely quoted study from 2001. And, you know, the press jumped on it and it was all the rage, all the talk, and it is held on. But it was very interesting to point out that that trial was actually looking at faith-based beliefs and not designed to look at faith-based practices. So people who professed Christianity, but didn't necessarily go to church, but they were looking at beliefs, and that's where it got started. But really, when they pulled back and looked at the data, people who have faith-based practices, meaning that they are going to church, that they are praying together, they found data that said that the divorce rate in that population is not the same. So again, this is another thing that has held on in popular culture, but when you look at the data, it's not true. The fourth thing that I wanted to say that came out of this is that not the big marital problems like abuse or addiction, but that simple changes can make a big difference in most marital problems. And that's actually why I'm here week to week. And when I have smaller things that you can do to actually make a difference in your marriage, such as hugging or kissing or journaling to each other, small things make a big difference. And they actually found that research supports that marriages do better with those types of things. And they also did dive into the remarriage thing. And yes, remarriages do fail. They found that roughly about a third of them, but it is not the 70% that you hear talking or that you hear all the time. So really 5 big takeaways. And so the biggest enemy or the biggest threat to marriage isn't divorce. The biggest threat to marriage is discouragement. Because if you think about it this way, when you think about your marriage, do you have a sense of hope? If you're going through a tough season, do you have a hope that things can get better? Do you have this we can get through it type of mentality? Or do you believe that it's not going to get better? Even if you want it to get better, it's not going to get better. And that the ship is going to sink anyway. I mean, like, think about it. If I believe that 50% of marriages are going to fail anyway, well, I'm not so bad. Isn't it possible that you kind of mentally check out because you just think the chances are that it's not going to work anyway? So you are not really, really trying to work for it. And so that level of discouragement is really what can take hold. And what I'm here to tell you is that divorce is not an inevitability. there is hope. And so your marriage it can withstand the test of time. I want you to get this book because it really does break down all of the things, breaks down all of those numbers, where they came from, and how it just became a commonly held belief that half of marriages are going to fail and that second and third marriages, absolutely not. So I really want you to be encouraged today to know that you can make it. So that's what I have for you today. So again, if you want to contact me, you can certainly do that at lynn@lynnsharif.com. If you're watching the replay, I definitely want to hear your thoughts about pure romance. I also want to hear your thoughts about this book, and absolutely let me know if you get this book. I would love to hear what your thoughts about it are. So I appreciate you joining me tonight. See you next week.